The story opens in the cramped living room of a modest row house in the center of a bustling city, where a cheap overhead light casts bleak shadows across the furniture. On the coffee table sits a single sheet of paper, blurry black and white text partially highlighted, barcodes at the edges, and a place labeled Genetic Probability of Paternity. A new-style voiceover sets the stage with a single, jarring sentence. Investigators say the DNA results sparked a violent confrontation that shattered what remained of a family's fragile peace. Within that single line, an entire life is exposed. A marriage pulled apart, siblings turned adversaries, and a child at the center, unaware that her very existence is a secret no one wanted revealed. It's a calm before the storm, the moment so many describe in hushed tones, the instant that everything changed forever. There is a scent of tension in the air that is impossible to ignore, as if the oxygen itself is laced with suspicion and doubt. Heavier footsteps can be heard just outside the door, a neighbor's dog barking, and in the distance a car alarm that refuses to quit. An ordinary evening, but for the single piece of paper that will decide the future of several lives. Nina, the wife whose name has become the focus of so many whispered conversations, sits across from the table, her eyes red from crying, phone buzzing with notifications she cannot bear to read. She can't bring herself to pick up the paper again. The stinging memory of how she arrived at this point is like a barbed wire scraping against her mind. There is no turning back. She's replaying every mistake, every late-night lie, every clandestine text message, every clumsy excuse for why she arrived home 2 hours later than promised. Her husband, Marcus, is behind her, leaning against a wall, quietly absorbing the unthinkable truth. The child they have raised together might not be biologically his. Or, as that piece of paper says, there is a disturbing chance she belongs to Marcus's brother Elijah. A single tear slides down Nina's cheek as she remembers the first day she met Elijah. It was 7 years ago, a summer barbecue in the yard behind Marcus's parents' house. Marcus had introduced her proudly as the new girlfriend to everyone. She was so in love with Marcus's gentle smile and his sense of humor, and her excitement drowned out everything else. Elijah was nothing more than an older sibling with a flashy grin and a few corny jokes. They all laughed together, teased each other, but there was always a lingering tension between the brothers, an undercurrent of rivalry or unspoken competition. At the time, Nina thought it was nothing more than sibling banter. She had no clue that rivalry would one day devour her world. On a phone-recorded interview recovered by the local news station, Nina tries to explain how she never intended for the affair to happen. I was alone. I felt unloved, she says, her voice shaking with a blend of shame and anger directed at herself. Elijah was there for me when I felt like Marcus had given up. Her voice cracks, and the camera pans away, capturing the stark geometry of the tiny living room. A baby's toy rests on the floor, a small stuffed giraffe, a silent witness to adult secrets. On screen, a timestamp, 8:02 p.m. Then a cut to a nighttime shot of the same street, squad cars parked haphazardly along the curb, their red and blue lights dancing across windows. A neighbor appears in a brief on-camera interview. I just remember hearing them fight, the neighbor says, yelling about DNA tests, about betrayal. Then the brother showed up, doors slammed, I heard glass break. Next thing I see the child running out, crying, calling for her mother. The neighbor offers a nervous laugh, a dark irony creeping into her words. Never thought I'd see something like that on our block. Or a quiet street, mostly. The camera captures her worried face before fading to the next scene. Cut back to the living room. It's not a palace by any means, just a boxy couch, a scuffed coffee table, and some mismatched chairs. A place that once might have held a small measure of warmth now feels haunted by uncertainty. On the floor, near the couch, is a single unlaced sneaker that belongs to Marcus. The laces coil like serpents, an unintentional metaphor for the tangled web of secrets soon to unravel. That's where the tension stands, like an oppressive weight pushing down on everyone. Their daughter, bright-eyed, curious, can be heard in the next room, singing a nursery rhyme off-key, oblivious to the chaos she'll one day understand too well. Nina exhales, her gaze distant, mind drifting to her first real moment of temptation. A rainy Sunday afternoon, Marcus was out with friends, celebrating a small job promotion. She stayed behind, feeling guilty for her sour mood in a time that should have been joyful. Elijah dropped by unannounced with a bottle of wine dripping wet, claiming he just needed to kill time until his shift started. One glass turned into three, and somehow the conversation drifted into confessions. Elijah lamented that he had always been the overshadowed older brother, that Marcus got the attention, the love, and even the perfect partner. Nina, tipsy and feeling underappreciated, listened to it all like it was a sweet serenade, the empathy and validation she longed for. This recollection hits Nina like a wave. She tries to quiet it, but it demands her attention. In a hazy swirl of memory, she recalls leaning in, the taste of wine still on her lips, Elijah's strong, steady hand on her waist. She sees herself not as a villain, but as someone starved for affection. How easy it was to rationalize an impulsive decision. How quickly a line can be crossed when the heart yearns for something the mind insists is missing. It lasted too long to be a mere fling. The closeness, the stolen touches at family gatherings, the midnight calls, the heart-pounding panic that someone would find out. Now that the secret stands bare, the guilt is like acid in her veins. She glances toward Marcus, imagining the heartbreak he's enduring. She also imagines Elijah, who once swore to her that if the truth ever came out, he would take responsibility. But she doubts his promises now. The betrayal weighs on all three of them differently, but no one can deny that a line has been crossed. Dialogue erupts in the next room. Footsteps approach. Marcus, subdued but trembling with rage, says, "Nina, did you call Elijah? Does he even know we have the results?" His voice is stiff, formal, as though he's reciting lines from a script he never wanted to star in. Nina shakes her head, tears streaming. "I don't know. I can't face him right now. I can barely face you." Marcus steps closer, his voice cutting through the tension. "We can't hide from this. Our daughter deserves to know where she came from." That final statement lands like a hammer. Their daughter's entire sense of identity is at stake. And yet, how do you explain to a 6-year-old that her father might be her uncle? Another neighbor's voice surfaces from an audio clip. It was quiet for a bit, then it exploded. "I heard Marcus shout something about the results. I heard Nina screaming, 'Please, stop, it was a mistake.'" Then Elijah's voice. "It was chaos, like everything these people had bottled up was coming out all at once." The neighbor's words convey confusion, fear, and a sense of grim fascination, the same emotion that would soon grip the entire community. People devour scandal, especially one as lurid as a wife's affair with her brother-in-law, culminating in a child whose paternity is uncertain. The rumor mill runs all night with morsels of half-truth, a montage of police radio chatter, domestic disturbance reported, potential assault in progress, send backup. Sirens flicker in the background, the hush of a paramedic's voice crackles, "We have one person in severe distress, possible head injury." Then, a cut to black. This is the moment the watchers realize something tragic has happened, but the details remain murky. The question lingers in every hush. Who has been hurt and how badly? The camera pans across the living room once again, focusing on a single photograph. Nina, Marcus, and their daughter at a carnival, all smiling in a swirl of bright lights and cotton candy. The unspoken question, was that smile ever real or just a convenient mask? No official timeline is established yet, but the seeds of anguish have been planted. The local news anchor's voice rings out with a severe tone. Police have confirmed an investigation is underway. Family members declined to comment on the rumors circulating online. Neighbors remain shocked by the sudden turn of events. The anchor's expression is one of mild concern, as though reading a script about a minor traffic accident. But behind that polished veneer is the sensational hook that sells headlines. People want the grit, the heartbreak, the scandal. And the stage is set for a revelation that no one in this small community will forget anytime soon. The story rewinds to a more innocent time, or at least a time before the illusions cracked. Marcus and Nina in a cozy corner of a coffee shop, hands discussing baby names. It's a newly recovered home video. Marcus is behind the camera, calling out, "Nina, how do you feel about becoming a mom?" She laughs nervously, her cheeks flushed with joy. Excited, scared, mostly excited. The lens zooms in on her face, capturing a fleeting vulnerability. In the background, Elijah's voice interjects, "I like the name Dahlia. It's unique." Nina turns to him, smiling. "Dahlia? Huh?" That's pretty. Marcus's voice is recorded forever in that moment. We'll keep that in mind. A trivial exchange, but with hindsight, it becomes loaded with a heavier significance. The child might carry Elijah's chosen name because she might be his blood. Back in present day, the living room is now a crime scene. Police tape lines the walls, the coffee table is overturned, the piece of paper with the DNA results nowhere to be seen, possibly soaked in spilled coffee. Officers stand around with notepads. The paramedic crew packs up stretchers, the air thick with dread. A detective kneels by the couch picking up the stuffed giraffe. She sets it on the cushion, her expression one of gentle pity, as though acknowledging the child who will be scarred by this for a lifetime. Suddenly, the voiceover hushes, replaced by audio from a body camera. Marcus is in handcuffs, breathing hard, speaking in a panicked rush. "I did not hurt anyone, you understand me? He came at me. Elijah came at me first. I had to defend myself." The officer places a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder, guiding him outside to the street. The camera shakes as neighbors gather, phones out, capturing the spectacle for social media. A headline from a local blog. "Brother versus brother, tragic paternity revelations lead to violence." The article goes viral, fueling the rumors like gasoline on a bonfire. In the chaos stands Nina, near the window, hugging her daughter tight, refusing to let her see what's happening. The child is crying softly, asking, "Where's Daddy going?" Nina can't answer. She doesn't know what to say that will not tear her daughter's heart in two. On the sidewalk, paramedics load a second stretcher into an ambulance. Lying on it is Elijah, unconscious, a bruised cut on his forehead, possibly a concussion or worse. The medics shut the doors, the siren wails, and the ambulance speeds off into the night. The camera slowly returns to Nina's face, locked in a silent scream, tears cascading, capturing the very moment that her secret and the violence it has unleashed becomes irrevocably real. She tries to recall when her life turned upside down. Was it that first stolen kiss? The time she allowed Elijah to comfort her about a fight with Marcus? The moment she lied about working late? Each step felt small, but they stacked like precarious blocks until the tower collapsed. And now, there is only the devastation to pick through, the heartbreak that can't be undone. Police lights flicker across Nina's wet cheeks, and her daughter's sobs echo in the background. A final cut to the local anchor, who announces in a grim monotone, "Investigations are ongoing. The child's paternity has been disputed. Charges have not yet been filed, but the brother is reported in stable condition." Neighbors say the tension in that house had been building for months. More updates at 11. A new wave of shock hits the neighborhood the following day as rumors morph into outlandish theories. Maybe the child was never Marcus's. Maybe Nina had other lovers. Maybe the entire family was part of some twisted scam. The speculation is unstoppable. Inside the house, Nina tries to hold on to normalcy, making breakfast, packing lunch, kissing her daughter goodbye for school. But the facade is cracking. Each time the phone rings, her hands shake. She isn't ready for this confrontation. She doesn't want to face the possibility that her daughter, their daughter, might not be Marcus's at all. But the test is conclusive. 99% probability Elijah is the biological father. She tries to reach Elijah at the hospital. No one will let her in to see him. He's recovering, but heavily sedated, drifting in and out of consciousness, guarded by police in case the confrontation escalates further. Marcus, meanwhile, has spent the night in a holding cell, giving statements to the detective in charge. In a phone call recorded by investigators, Nina leaves a pleading voicemail. "Elijah, please call me back. We need to figure this out. I can't do this alone." Her voice cracks with desperation. "I'm scared of what's going to happen next. Please." An hour later, the phone rings. It's Elijah, sounding weak. "Nina, I can't talk long," he says. "The cops are trying to get me to press charges against Marcus. They think it was aggravated assault. I'm just trying to remember exactly what went down." Nina breathes into the receiver, shaking. "What do you mean, trying to remember? You were there. You showed up, Elijah sighs heavily. I didn't start the fight, Nina. He came at me first. I was just trying to talk to him about the test. I wasn't going to take his family away. I told him that. Nina's tears are silent, but they soak through her phone hand. I can't lose both of you. How can we fix this? Elijah coughs, wincing from pain. Just give me some time. Let me heal. Let's see what the cops do. We'll figure it out. Tension radiates through the phone line, a tension that has been growing for years. Nina knows that her relationship with Elijah was not just a momentary lapse. There were months of emotional closeness, exchanging confessions about feeling overlooked, unappreciated. There were times she thought she might even love him. But she also loves Marcus. It's a twisted emotional labyrinth, and the walls are caving in. As the day drags on, the media presence intensifies. Camera crews park outside the row house, hoping to capture a glimpse of the wife at the center of the scandal. She draws the blinds, ignoring the pounding on the door, refusing to answer the reporters' shouted questions. Is it true your child is the brother's? Did your husband really attack him? The headlines flash on phone screens across the city. DNA shocker leads to family brawl. A local talk show host devotes an entire segment to the drama. When trust is broken in a marriage, especially with a family member, can it ever be repaired? Calls out the host. The audience buzzes with strong opinions. People debate whether Nina is a villain or a victim of neglect. They debate if Elijah is just as guilty or if Marcus is to blame for not being emotionally supportive. The chatter only further fractures Nina's already delicate psyche. She finds herself trembling in the kitchen, running the faucet too long, forgetting she even turned it on, her mind lost in the swirl of public judgment and private guilt. Her daughter arrives home from school, quiet and withdrawn. "Mommy, some kid said daddy's in jail," she murmurs, eyes wide and afraid. "Is it true? Why do they say Uncle Elijah is my real dad?" Nina's breath catches in her throat. She tries to form the right words, but none come. How do you explain grown-up betrayal to a child so small? She hugs her little girl tight, whispering that they'll all figure it out, but tears blur her vision. She can't see the path forward. In another corner of town, Marcus sits at the station waiting for his lawyer. He's angry, humiliated, a swirl of grief and betrayal. He flips through text messages from Nina, from Elijah, reading them again and again like they're fresh wounds. In a confessional voiceover recorded by police, he mutters, "I gave her everything. I tried to be the good husband, the good brother. How could they do this? I just lost my job last month. I've been so stressed, but I never thought she would, with him of all people. I lost it when I saw the results. I can't even remember who threw the first punch. I just remember seeing red." His voice breaks and he buries his face in his hands. The detective, a tall woman with stern eyes, watches him with a mix of professional detachment and pity. She slides a styrofoam cup of water across the table. "Marcus, we need to know exactly what happened last night. We have conflicting statements. Your brother says you lunged at him, but you're claiming he provoked you. Is it possible you both bear some responsibility?" Marcus exhales, avoiding eye contact. "He walked in, flaunting those damn test results like a trophy. He said something about wanting to step up as a father. I snapped. Next thing I knew, I was on top of him, fists flying. I've never felt rage like that in my life." Outside, a small group of reporters waits by the station's front entrance, cameras aimed at the doors, anticipating an arrest or a statement. They jostle each other for better angles, trading rumors about the family meltdown. One reporter quips, "This story's got legs. Betrayal, DNA scandal, brother fights brother. This is primetime material." Another reporter smirks, "Who needs soap operas when reality is this crazy?" The laughter is hollow, and soon they turn to more sensational sound bites. The situation has become a spectacle, a piece of viral fodder for people to devour. Night falls again, a hush over the row house as Nina puts her daughter to bed. She gently reads a bedtime story, but her voice wavers. The child senses the tension, fiddling with the edges of her blanket, eyes reflecting worry she can't fully articulate. Nina kisses her forehead and steps into the living room, a glass of wine trembling in her hand. She tries to call Marcus's phone, but no answer. She tries Elijah's phone, also no answer. She is alone with her thoughts, forced to confront her reflection in the large mirror hanging on the hallway wall. She sees a woman she barely recognizes. Puffy eyes, hair in disarray, shoulders slumped under the weight of shame and fear. The swirling question keeps returning. What happens now? In the early hours of morning, a local gossip blog posts an update that sets social media ablaze. They claim to have inside information indicating that Nina's affair with Elijah has been going on for years. They insinuate that the child is definitely Elijah's, that Marcus is seeking full custody, that charges will be filed, that a divorce is imminent. None of it is confirmed, but the mere speculation is enough to stoke the fires. Nina sees the post and slumps against the wall, her phone slipping from her grasp. Reality is devouring her. She wonders if this is the end of everything she once loved. The frantic swirl of gossip is momentarily overshadowed by a new shock. Elijah is pressing charges. An official statement emerges from his hospital bed. He claims Marcus attacked him with no provocation, that he was only there to talk, to smooth things over. He demands justice for the violence inflicted upon him. A wave of public sympathy shifts. Some view Elijah as a manipulative snake, seducing his brother's wife and then playing the victim. Others see him as a legitimate father wanting to be in his child's life. Everyone has an opinion. No one has the full story. Marcus is released on bail with a court date looming. He returns home late at night using a spare key. Nina doesn't hear him come in. She's asleep in their bedroom, still in the clothes she wore the day before. The entire house is dark except for a nightlight in the hall. Marcus stands in the doorway, looking at her with a mix of resentment and longing. For a moment, he recalls the day he proposed on a small overlook near the ocean, the wind in her hair, her eyes bright with love. He thought they would be together forever, building a family with unwavering trust. Now it's a broken dream. He steps into the room, accidentally knocks a picture frame off the dresser. Nina stirs awake with a gasp. They lock eyes, uncertain. "Marcus," she whispers, sitting up, "you're home." He crosses his arms, voice strained. "Not sure I can call this place home anymore." Nina fumbles for the lamp, turning it on, light flooding over the tension between them. "I'm so sorry," she starts, tears already slipping down her cheeks. "I messed up. I ruined everything." Marcus stands there, fists clenched, jaws tight. "I wanted a life with you, a child with you, and now I find out Dahlia might not even be mine." His voice cracks, betraying the heartbreak behind the anger. Nina tries to reach out, but he steps back. "Don't," he hisses. "I can't handle being touched by you right now." She lowers her arms, tears streaking silently. "Marcus, please. We can figure this out. We can still raise her together. She loves you. You're the only father she's ever known. That's got to count for something." Marcus's face contorts with a fury he tries to contain. "Yes, I love her too. But that doesn't erase the fact that you and Elijah made a fool out of me." Nina breathes shakily, wiping her eyes. "He never intended to take her away. It was an accident. It was a mistake." Marcus interjects harshly. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Nina, not sleeping with my brother behind my back." The cold truth hangs in the air. She has no defense. They remain in agonizing silence for minutes that feel like hours. The only sound is the distant hum of traffic outside. Finally, Marcus breathes out. "I don't know what's next. I don't know how to forgive this, but I do know Dahlia needs stability." Nina nods, voice trembling. "She does. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure she's safe and loved." Marcus's eyes flicker with confusion, heartbreak, and a tiny flicker of the love they once shared. "I can't promise I won't leave you," he says quietly, "but I can promise I'll never abandon Dahlia, even if she's not mine by blood." Nina's tears come anew, and in that moment, the regret is nearly overwhelming. She wants to beg for his forgiveness, but knows it won't be that simple. The next morning, Nina wakes up alone in bed, Marcus gone again. She finds a note in the kitchen, scrawled in his shaky handwriting. "I'm staying at a friend's. Don't call me unless it's about our daughter." She crumples onto the floor, arms wrapped around herself in despair. She doesn't know where to go from here. Her phone buzzes. Reporters again, wanting a comment, hungry for a fresh angle on the scandal. She ignores them. She musters the energy to get her daughter ready for school, forcing a brave face in the presence of that innocent child. Inside, guilt gnaws at her, and she can see in Dahlia's curious eyes that questions are piling up. Midday, Nina receives a text from an unfamiliar number. It's a link to another blog post. She hesitates but clicks, bracing herself. The article claims that Elijah is not only pressing charges but is also considering a paternal rights lawsuit to have Dahlia legally recognized as his daughter. The words jump off the screen. He wants rightful custody. Nina's stomach churns. Could she lose Dahlia to Elijah? Her mind spins with terrifying questions. Will the courts see this as a valid claim? Would Marcus fight to keep Dahlia away from Elijah even if it meant cutting Nina out of the picture entirely? The complexity of what she's done crashes down on her like an avalanche. There is no easy escape from this, and so the stage is set for a new confrontation. The phone rings, a blocked number. Nina answers, and Elijah's voice greets her. He sounds weaker, still recovering. "I had to do it," he mumbles. "Marcus was out of control. He nearly killed me. I can't just let that slide. I also want a relationship with Dahlia. I didn't ask to be her father, but I am. She deserves to know me." Nina's voice trembles with anxiety. "You want to tear this family apart even more?" Elijah sighs. "Nina, be real. This family is already torn apart. We need to deal with the fallout. You think I want to be a villain? I just can't pretend this never happened." She chokes back tears, but pressing charges, going after custody, this will destroy Marcus. It will destroy everything. Elijah's tone is firm. "He destroyed himself when he laid hands on me like that. I never meant to rob him of his fatherhood, but Dahlia is my blood, not his. Legally, I have rights too." A swirl of emotion overtakes Nina. Remorse, regret, guilt, a dash of hopelessness. She can't blame Elijah entirely. After all, she shares responsibility. But a small voice in her mind says that this was Elijah's design from the start. A subconscious desire to outdo his brother by taking his wife, his child, and now his future. She hates herself for thinking it, hates that she let her guard down so far. She hangs up with trembling hands, sliding to the kitchen floor. The walls seem to close in, the hum of the refrigerator louder than her own heartbeat. The sense of doom is overwhelming, and she wonders if there is any way to protect Dahlia from the gathering storm. Days pass in a surreal blur. Marcus, out on bail, consults a lawyer about the assault charges. Elijah recuperates in the hospital, his attorney drafting paternity paperwork. Nina tries to maintain some semblance of normalcy for Dahlia, helping with homework, making dinners, reading bedtime stories. But each day is overshadowed by the looming threat of more public scandal, more legal strife. The phone won't stop ringing. Reporters still cluster outside at dawn. Neighbors peek from behind curtains, whispering about the family that has become a spectacle. One evening, Nina musters the courage to visit Elijah in the hospital. She sneaks past a couple of journalists lingering by the entrance, wearing a hooded sweatshirt to hide her face. She finds him in a dimly lit private room. He's hooked up to IV fluids, his head bandaged. A machine beeps steadily at his side. His eyes flick up, meeting hers with a cautious mix of relief and resentment. "You look terrible," she manages, stepping to his bed. He attempts a smirk, but it morphs into a wince. "Feel even worse." She stands there awkwardly, arms folded. "I never wanted this," she whispers. "I never wanted a public showdown or for you to get hurt. I never wanted Dahlia to grow up in a broken home." Elijah's gaze softens. "I know, but it's too late to undo anything." They share a moment of regret. Then he says quietly, "How's Dahlia? Does she know anything yet?" Nina swallows. "Not really. She hears stuff at school. She asks why you're hurt, why daddy is gone. I don't know how to tell her the truth without breaking her heart." Elijah's voice trembles. "I care about her, Nina. She's my daughter. I want to be in her life." Nina steps back, tears brimming. "I know you do. But if you push this custody thing, you'll start a war with Marcus." "I know him. He'll fight like hell." Elijah closes his eyes, sighing. "Maybe that's what has to happen. I can't ignore my child just to keep the peace. We all have to face what we did." The beep of the monitor punctuates the silence, each pulse a reminder of how fragile life can be. Nina leaves after a few minutes, tears blurring her vision in the hospital corridor. She can't imagine a future where Elijah and Marcus coexist, let alone a future where Dahlia understands the truth of her parentage without being scarred. That night, Nina sits at her kitchen table, rummaging through the remains of a life she once cherished. Old photos of her and Marcus on their wedding day, the Polaroids from the barbecue where she first met Elijah, and countless pictures of Dahlia's birth and toddler milestones. They all paint a story of a happy family, but behind those smiles lurk dissatisfaction, secrets, and the heavy weight of choices they never expected to face. She wonders if it's possible to salvage anything or if this is merely the beginning of a slow, painful end. Outside, thunder rumbles as though the sky itself can sense the approaching storm that will consume them all. A sudden knock at the door makes her jump. She checks the peephole. Detectives? Her heart races as she opens the door. One detective she recognizes from earlier. He nods politely, stepping inside with a notepad. "Ma'am, we have some updates," he begins, his tone gentle but firm. "Your brother-in-law, Elijah, has officially filed charges against your husband, Marcus, for assault. There's also a petition for paternal rights in family court." Nina's stomach drops. The detective continues, "We're going to need a formal statement from you regarding the events of that night." "Do you have counsel?" She shakes her head. "No, I don't even know what to do." The detective eyes her with sympathy. "My advice? Get a lawyer, fast." The detective departs, leaving Nina in the echoing silence of her living room. On the couch, Dahlia's stuffed giraffe sits propped up, staring blankly. Nina sinks beside it, burying her face in her hands. The next steps are terrifying. A swirl of court hearings, media frenzy, deeper family fractures. She's not sure who to protect first, Marcus, Elijah, or the innocent child at the center of it all. And beneath every layer of confusion is the gnawing truth that she is the catalyst for this tragedy. She closes her eyes, inhaling a shaky breath, wishing she could rewind time to a moment before she ever allowed her loneliness to push her into another man's arms, especially the one man who should have been untouchable. The following day, a fresh wave of reporters camp outside the local courthouse. Marcus has a preliminary appearance for the assault charge. Cameras flash, microphones thrust forward, capturing every twitch of emotion on his face. He ignores them, wearing a blank expression as he enters the building, accompanied by an overworked public defender. Nina stands a few steps behind, feeling the scorching stares from the crowd. She hears the whispers. "That's the wife," someone mutters. "She cheated with the husband's brother," another hisses. Nina lowers her gaze, hiding behind sunglasses, her heart pounding. Inside the courtroom, fluorescent lights buzz overhead, and a stern-faced judge surveys the scene. The prosecutor reads out the charges, describing the night in question. The violence that erupted, the paramedic reports, Elijah's injuries. Marcus's lawyer pleads not guilty on his behalf, stating that there are mitigating factors that Elijah provoked him. The judge sets a future date for the hearing, reminding them that any violation of no-contact orders will be taken seriously. Marcus casts a wounded glance in Nina's direction, but doesn't speak. She wishes she could run to him, but a police officer stands in the aisle, arms folded, making sure the chaotic family drama stays contained. Later, Nina sits alone at a small cafe across from the courthouse. She stares into a black coffee she hasn't touched, hands trembling. Her phone buzzes. It's Elijah, texting from the hospital, presumably out of bed now. "We need to talk about Dahlia," he writes. She knows she can't avoid this forever. She types back, "Not now, please." "I can't handle more," he responds. "This won't go away. Call me when you're ready." She sets the phone aside, burying her face in her hands. She's torn between two men, neither of whom trusts her anymore. Both are struggling with betrayal, fatherhood claims, and the kind of fraternal competition that can destroy everyone in its path. As she lifts her head, she notices a figure sliding into the seat across from her. It's a woman with a direct stare. Elijah's lawyer, as Nina soon realizes. She introduces herself as Miss Chantry. She's calm, professional, and exudes an air of confidence that makes Nina uneasy. "I know this is a difficult time," Miss Chantry begins, "but Elijah has retained my services to explore paternal rights. We believe it's in Dahlia's best interest to establish a formal relationship with her biological father. If you cooperate, it could be less contentious." Nina's pulse spikes, a flare of desperation. Less contentious? You're talking about upending my daughter's life. Marcus is the only father she's ever known. Ms. Chantry's expression is steeled. Facts are facts. The DNA test doesn't lie. I suggest you get legal representation. Elijah's not doing this to hurt you, but he won't back down either. Nina's frustration boils. She stands, coffee sloshing. You think I don't know facts? I've done enough damage. Don't come to me acting like this is a business transaction. We're talking about a little girl here, not a piece of property. Miss Chantry rises as well, her professional demeanor unfazed. I understand your feelings, but from a legal standpoint, it's a matter of rights and responsibilities. Nina storms out, tears biting at her eyes. She can't bear the thought of a custody battle that further drags Dahlia into the spotlight. Yet the possibility seems inevitable. She calls Marcus from a quiet corner behind the courthouse, surrounded by dumpsters and the acrid smell of rotting food. He answers with hesitation. Nina? He says, voice wary. She takes a deep breath. Elijah's lawyer approached me. He's serious about pursuing paternal rights. Marcus is silent for a moment, then erupts in a bitter laugh. Of course he is. That's what he wanted all along, to take everything I had. Nina's voice trembles. Don't say that. It's more complicated than that. Marcus's voice rumbles with anger. Is it? You think I'm blind to his motives? He's always resented me. You were just another thing he could take, she tries to protest, but words fail her. Marcus hisses, I'm done talking about this. I'm focusing on beating these assault charges and keeping Dahlia safe. Stay out of my way. The line goes dead. She feels the sting of rejection and the hollowness of her own culpability. In the following days, Nina notices the tension escalating around her. She gets dirty looks at the grocery store, overhears neighbors gossiping in hushed tones. Dahlia seems more anxious, sensing the dread that thickens the air. The phone calls from reporters and gossip mongers don't stop. Everything feels like it's building towards some catastrophic moment. In bed, Nina stares at the ceiling, unable to sleep, haunted by regrets, uncertain how to atone. She pictures Elijah, bruised and bandaged, determined to claim his daughter. She pictures Marcus, alone in a borrowed apartment, seething at his shattered life. Most of all, she pictures Dahlia, caught between them, the tragic result of a love that should never have been. Yet another headline surfaces, Brothers' Betrayal, Love Triangle, Shocks Community. The article rehashes the entire story, embellishing details for maximum scandal. Nina can barely read it, but she can't tear her eyes away. A single line leaps out. One can only wonder which brother the wife truly loves. She wonders that herself. She once loved Marcus wholeheartedly. She fell into Elijah's arms through a painful mix of loneliness and misguided passion. Now she feels nothing but guilt and heartbreak. She questions whether real love exists when betrayal taints everything. News breaks that Elijah has been released from the hospital. A paparazzi-style photo surfaces online, him stepping into a taxi, still bandaged, guarded by Miss Chantry. His face is grim, unwavering. The caption reads, Father fights for child. Nina's phone buzzes again. Elijah calling. Against her better judgment, she answers. Nika, he starts, I'm out. I need to see Dahlia. She braces herself. Elijah, please. I don't know if that's a good idea. She's already so confused. He sighs. I won't barge in and announce I'm her father, if that's what you're worried about. I just need to see her to make sure she's okay. Nina's anger flickers. Why now? Why couldn't you just leave us alone? Elijah's voice cracks. Because I love her. I love you. She closes her eyes, tears slipping down. That's the problem. You can't love me, not after all this. She hangs up, hard hammering. Moments later, a swirl of police sirens passes by. She peeks out the window to see them speed down the street. In this tense environment, any siren could mean a new headline that further tangles her story. She shudders, pressing her forehead to the window. She can't imagine this getting any worse, yet some deep intuition warns that it can and it will. There's an unshakable sense that a new revelation or confrontation looms, that the final tether holding this family together will snap, plunging them all into a darkness they might not escape. The hours tick by without relief, each day bringing them closer to a dramatic reckoning. Late that night, Nina sits alone in the dimly lit living room, Dahlia long asleep. She scrolls through her phone, reading old text messages from Elijah. "I've never felt so alive as when I'm with you." She scrolls further, finding older ones from Marcus. "No matter how tough it gets, I'll always be by your side. The contradiction is too painful." She tosses the phone aside, burying her face in her hands, wishing for the 100th time she could relive the moment she first allowed Elijah into her life as more than just a brother-in-law. But regrets don't erase consequences. She stands, heading to Dahlia's room, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she sleeps. That innocent child, about to become the biggest casualty of adult failings. Nina closes her eyes, silently praying for a miracle, for a chance to piece together the broken shards of a life that now feels irredeemably shattered. Days turn into weeks, and the first major court appearance arrives. It's a closed-door hearing for paternal rights. Nina sits at one table, accompanied by a hastily appointed family lawyer, hair pulled tight, eyes downcast. Elijah sits at another table with Miss Chantry, his posture stiff, a small bandage still visible on his temple. At a third table is Marcus, with his own attorney, an older man with a face lined from decades of legal battles. The tension is suffocating. Dahlia waits outside with a social worker, clueless about the life-changing arguments unfolding inside. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a calm demeanor, addresses the courtroom. "We are here to determine whether Mr. Elijah Green has a legitimate claim to paternal rights over the minor child, Dahlia Green. The child is currently recognized as the daughter of Marcus and Nina Green, but DNA evidence indicates Mr. Elijah Green is the biological father. The best interest of the child is our top priority." She glances between the three adults, each harboring conflicting desires and resentments. Elijah's attorney lays out the argument that Dahlia is biologically his and that he intends to play an active, responsible role in her upbringing. Marcus's attorney retorts that Dahlia has been raised by Marcus as his daughter, that a stable environment is crucial, and that Elijah's sudden involvement is disruptive and harmful. Nina's lawyer tries to walk a line of compromise, suggesting shared custody or supervised visitation to minimize the upheaval. The judge listens, eyes scanning each face for truth and sincerity. The emotional toll is palpable. Elijah's voice trembles as he insists, "I never meant to take Dahlia away. I just want the chance to be her dad." Marcus, fists clenched, retorts, "You made that choice when you slept with my wife. You don't get to waltz in now and play father." A hush falls over the room as the judge contemplates the evidence and the explosive dynamic at play. She eventually decides to appoint a guardian ad litem for Dahlia, a neutral party who will investigate and recommend what arrangement serves the child's best interests. In the meantime, Elijah is granted limited supervised visits, despite Marcus's vehement objection. Nina watches it all with an ache that feels like it's draining her soul. As the hearing concludes, the judge warns them all, "The court will not tolerate hostilities. If we find any party is jeopardizing the child's welfare, there will be serious consequences." Outside in the hallway, the three converge, though bodyguards and attorneys keep them from getting too close. Elijah attempts eye contact with Nina, but she looks away, tears threatening. Marcus's glare is enough to freeze a lesser man. Without a word, they go their separate ways, each grappling with the knowledge that the next few weeks will determine Dahlia's future. Reporters swarm, but bailiffs push them back. Camera shutters click as the three grown siblings by marriage stand in tense proximity. It's a moment destined for front-page news. "Family torn apart by DNA shocker," the headlines read. Back at home, Nina collapses on the couch. Dahlia, sensing her mother's distress, climbs up beside her. "Mommy, is this about Daddy and Uncle Elijah again?" Nina forces a gentle tone. "They're just talking about grown-up stuff, sweetie. Everything's going to be okay." Dahlia tilts her head. "But the kids at school say you did something bad. They say, Uncle Elijah is my real dad. Is that true?" Nina's heart pounds. She can't lie outright, yet she can't confirm it either. She opts for a gentle deflection. "Grown-ups make mistakes sometimes, Dahlia, but you're loved by all of us." That's what's important. Dahlia nods, but doesn't look reassured. The seeds of confusion and hurt are already planted. A few days later, the first supervised visit is scheduled at a social services center. Nina brings Dahlia, her little hand clutching a plush giraffe. The room is drab with worn-out chairs and a motivational poster peeling from the wall. A caseworker, Ms. Moore, stands nearby. Elijah steps in, hesitant. His face softens at the sight of Dahlia. She looks at him curiously, not sure why they're meeting in such a strange place. Nina stiffens, feeling the wave of guilt return. Elijah kneels down to Dahlia's level. "Hey there, kiddo, how are you?" Dahlia clutches her mother's leg, shy. Elijah offers a small smile. "I have something for you." He hands her a tiny coloring book and a new set of crayons. Slowly she relaxes, stepping forward to accept it. Nina sits in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, watching. The air is thick with tension and sadness. Dahlia glances back at her mother for reassurance. Nina nods weakly, forcing a smile. Dahlia moves closer to Elijah, showing him a picture she's been coloring. A house, a mom, a dad, a child. Innocent fantasies that seem so far from the reality they inhabit. Elijah makes small talk, asking Dahlia about her favorite songs, her favorite games. She answers in quiet excitement. For a moment, it almost feels normal, like an uncle and niece spending time together. But the weight of that DNA test hangs over them, unspoken yet powerful. Elijah keeps darting glances at Nina as if searching for her approval or forgiveness. She gives him nothing but regretful eyes. Marcus refuses to attend any visit. He can't stomach seeing Elijah claim the role of father. He's busy building his defense for the assault case, scouring text messages and phone logs, trying to prove Elijah came looking for a fight that night. He's also drowning in private anger that the woman he loved betrayed him so fundamentally. The walls of trust have collapsed, and he's left to pick up the debris. He can't envision a future where he co-parents with the man who destroyed his marriage. In a confessional voice recording for his lawyer, Marcus says, "I can't even look at my brother without wanting to tear him apart." How do I explain that to Dahlia? She's my little girl no matter what the DNA says. As the weeks crawl on, the guardian ad litem interviews neighbors, teachers, family friends. They gather glimpses into the dynamic. Marcus was a devoted father. Nina was a loving mother, but clearly troubled. Elijah popped up from time to time, rumored to be a charmer, always overshadowed by Marcus. Most of them never suspected the affair, but once it blew up, they reevaluated every look, every conversation. The entire community feels complicit in the sense that they miss the signs or refuse to see them. Meanwhile, local news stations can't resist the dramatic angle, a salacious family feud that's easy to package into neat sound bites. Then, a quiet bombshell. Nina's mother calls from out of state. She's weeping on the phone, worried about her daughter and granddaughter. "Nina, I saw the news. Why didn't you call me?" Nina sighs, tears welling. "Because I'm ashamed, Mom. I messed up so badly. I didn't want you to judge me." Her mother's voice is stern but loving. "I'm coming to see you. I won't judge. I'll help in any way I can. You're my child, Nina. We'll figure this out." Nina feels a flicker of relief. Maybe having someone in her corner will help her navigate this nightmare. Days later, Nina's mother arrives, a weathered suitcase in hand. She envelops Nina in a hug that unleashes a torrent of pent-up tears. She meets Dahlia, tries to maintain normalcy, cooking a homemade meal, humming lullabies she once sang to Nina. Late that evening, once Dahlia is asleep, they sit at the kitchen table over cups of tea. Nina's mother presses gently. "How did this start, dear?" Nina weeps as she recounts feeling neglected, lonely, how Elijah filled a void she never admitted existed. Her mother listens, tears forming in her own eyes. "Child, we all have weaknesses. But this one, my God, it's a huge mess." Nina sniffles, face contorted with remorse. "I know, I wish I could undo it, but I can't." Her mother squeezes her hand. "Then we make the best of what's left. Dahlia's the priority now." The next day, Nina's mother accompanies her to the second supervised visit. Elijah is already there waiting. He greets them with a respectful nod. Nina's mother regards him with the disapproving glare of a parent protecting her child, but she remains cordial for Dahlia's sake. The hour passes more smoothly than the first visit, with Dahlia laughing at Elijah's silly attempts to juggle crayons. Ms. Moore notes the improvement. Nina tries to focus on Dahlia's happiness, ignoring the pang in her chest whenever she meets Elijah's eyes. She remembers the nights they spent whispering in the dark, confiding fears and dreams she never shared with Marcus. It all feels surreal now, like a different life entirely. That evening, after Dahlia is asleep, Nina's mother corners her again in the kitchen. He seems to care for Dahlia, she admits. But he's still the reason your life is upside down. Are you sure he's genuine? Nina shrugs helplessly. He's not evil. We both made terrible choices. Now it's just damage control. Her mother sighs, exhaustion lining her face. I just wish you'd seen me or talked to me before letting it get this far. Nina's voice trembles. I was so lost. And now, I'm so afraid of losing everything. Her mother embraces her, offering a soothing hush, though neither can ignore the storm raging outside that small circle of comfort. Meanwhile, Marcus grows bitter, isolated. He has minimal contact with Nina, communicating only about Dahlia's routine. He refuses to see Elijah, insisting it's part of the court's restriction for them to stay apart. He buries himself in the legal process, determined to beat the assault charge by painting Elijah as the aggressor. He consults old family members who recall Elijah's history of impulsive behavior or petty crime. The tension between them stretches back to childhood, and though it never escalated to violence before, everyone can see how the seeds were planted long ago. One night, Elijah tries to call Marcus. It goes to voicemail. He leaves a trembling message. Look, man, I know you hate me. I probably deserve it. But I need to talk to you about Dahlia. We can't let this ruin her life. Please call me back. Marcus listens to it alone in his sparse new apartment, fury boiling. He deletes the voicemail without responding. Dahlia is the only reason he hasn't abandoned this city entirely. He can't stomach the idea of Elijah, the brother who betrayed him, stepping in as her father. Every passing day fuels his resentment. At the next court hearing, tensions explode once again. It begins quietly enough. The guardian ad litem shares preliminary findings, stating that Dahlia would benefit from knowing her biological father, but also needs the stability of Marcus's familiar presence. The recommendation is for shared custody, with a gradual integration for Elijah. Marcus's jaw tightens. Absolutely not, he blurts, ignoring his lawyer's warning glance. I raised Dahlia. I clothed her, fed her, loved her. He doesn't get to swoop in and claim her. The judge warns him to watch his tone. Elijah tries to interject calmly. Marcus, it's not about taking her from you. It's about... Marcus cuts him off, voice shaking with rage. Stop. You don't get to speak like you're an innocent bystander. The bailiff steps closer, ready to intervene. Nina's eyes fill with tears as she watches the two men who once shared a brotherly bond now stand on opposite sides of a battlefield. After the hearing adjourns, the hallway erupts in tension. Marcus and Elijah come face to face. Lawyers scramble to separate them before violence breaks out. Elijah's voice is low, trembling with suppressed anger. I'm done apologizing. I'm her father, and I'm not backing down. Marcus leans in, voice dripping with venom. You'll regret this, I promise. Nina stands off to the side, paralyzed by guilt and fear. A pair of reporters snap pictures, capturing the hatred on both men's faces. In the days that follow, the story takes a new, darker turn. Online gossip spreads rumors that the tension has escalated to stalking and death threats. Elijah claims he's received anonymous messages telling him to drop the custody claim or face consequences. Marcus denies any involvement, but many believe he's behind it. A local tabloid prints an unverified story about Nina's alleged suicide attempts, further fueling the drama. Every new rumor is shared and dissected, feeding a public hungry for shock and scandal. Nina finds herself living in constant anxiety, double-checking the locks at night, scanning the street for lurking reporters or strangers. Through it all, Dahlia remains heartbreakingly oblivious to the full scope. She just knows Daddy is gone. Mommy cries a lot, and Uncle Elijah appears at scheduled visits in drab rooms. In one such visit, Dahlia asks, Why can't you come over to my house anymore, Uncle? Elijah's face falters and he replies softly, It's complicated, but you know I care about you, right? She nods, returning to her coloring. Nina sits in the corner, tears burning behind her eyelids. She can't escape the thought that she's destroyed this child's simple, beautiful world. Then, a midnight phone call jolts Nina out of bed. She rushes to the living room, heart thudding. It's a detective. Marcus is at the police station, picked up on suspicion of vandalizing Elijah's car. They found shattered windows and slashed tires, along with a note reading, "Stay away from my daughter." Nina's hands fly to her mouth. She can't believe Marcus would go that far, but after everything, she's no longer sure. She begs the detective for details, but they can only confirm that Marcus is being questioned. Later, a second call. Elijah, furious. "Your husband lost his mind. I'm pressing charges if he doesn't back off." Nina cradles the phone, stammering apologies she's too numb to feel. Elijah's voice rises. "Nina, you have to fix this. Talk to Marcus. I won't let him threaten me anymore." She can barely speak, the last fragments of her life unraveling before her. Once she hangs up, she sinks to the floor, clutching the phone like a lifeline. She wonders if the next phone call will bring news of another tragedy. Morning breaks, and Nina's mother tries to comfort her, but the words feel empty. Nina calls Marcus repeatedly, going straight to voicemail. Eventually, she learns he was released. She drives to the station, but he's not there. Worried, she heads to his friend's apartment, banging on the door. No answer. She calls again and again until he finally picks up, sounding exhausted. "What, Nina?" he says, as if her voice is a torment. She pleads, "Where are you? I need to talk to you about last night." He sighs heavily. "I'm at a motel. Let it go." Nina's frustration crackles. "They're saying you vandalized Elijah's car. You left a threatening note." "Did you?" She hears him grunt. "I don't owe you an explanation, but for what it's worth, I didn't do anything. He's lying to frame me." She closes her eyes, relief and doubt mixing. "Marcus, please. We can't keep doing this. We're going to destroy Dahlia if we don't find a way to settle down." He snorts a humorless laugh. "We? You already destroyed everything." The line clicks dead. That evening, Nina's mother suggests they pack up and leave the city, at least temporarily. Take Dahlia, go somewhere quiet until this settles. Let the courts handle it from afar. But Nina knows that fleeing might damage her case, paint her as an unfit mother or someone trying to hide Dahlia from Elijah. She shakes her head wearily. "No, we have to face this. Running won't solve anything." Her mother sighs. "Then we have to find another solution." Nina can only nod, tears threatening once again. A week later, the assault trial against Marcus finally begins. The case has drawn significant media attention. Cameras line the courthouse steps. The family arrives separately, Nina with Dahlia, escorted by her mother, Elijah with his lawyer, Marcus with his own counsel. It's a swirl of tension and stifled rage. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution describes the fight, how Marcus allegedly attacked Elijah after seeing the DNA results. They point to Elijah's injuries and the hospital records. Marcus's defense counters that Elijah instigated by flaunting the affair and threatening to take Dahlia away. Nina is called to testify. She stands on the witness stand, nerves fraying at the edges. She's sworn in, tears glistening as the prosecutor begins. "Mrs. Green, can you describe the events of that evening?" She looks down, voice quivering. "Elijah came over. He and Marcus argued. It turned into a fight. I tried to stop them, but they were consumed by anger." The prosecutor presses for details. "Who threw the first punch?" Nina hesitates, remembering the chaotic swirl of fists and shouts. "I'm not entirely sure. It happened so fast," she manages, though she recalls Marcus lunging forward first, a blur of rage. She can't bring herself to sink him. The defense then questions her. "Is it true Elijah had been texting you about taking Dahlia away, that he provoked Marcus?" Nina tightens her grip on the wooden ledge. "He mentioned wanting to be a father, but I don't know if he said he was taking her away. Everything was so heated." She feels the weight of both men's eyes on her. She can sense Marcus's silent plea to confirm that Elijah provoked him. She can sense Elijah's tension, worried she'll testify in favor of Marcus. Caught in the middle, she can only speak half-truths. uncertain how to protect them both without condemning one. By the end of the day's testimony, the court adjourns, tension still sizzling in the air. Outside, reporters shove microphones forward, but Nina shields her face, guiding Dahlia away. Marcus storms off with his lawyer, avoiding all questions. Elijah lingers, rubbing his temple, eyes clouded. Nina's mother hustles them all to the car, the child clinging to her hand, confused and scared. On the drive home, Dahlia finally asks, "Mommy, why do people say Uncle Elijah is my dad?" Nina nearly runs a red light, her panic swelling. She can't hide this forever. Tears in her voice, she forces out, "Dahlia, sometimes grown-ups make big mistakes. Uncle Elijah, well, he's part of our family in a way. That's complicated. But I love you no matter what." Dahlia starts to cry, overwhelmed by confusion. Nina's mother gives Nina a look that says, "You'll have to explain soon." But how does one explain the inexcusable? That night, the phone rings. It's the guardian ad litem wanting to schedule a meeting with Dahlia privately. Nina's chest tightens. A wave of dread washes over her. This is the next step, where the child's own thoughts become evidence in a court's decision about who gets to claim her. Nina can see no easy resolution. She knows the next few days will shape the rest of Dahlia's life, forging a path that might lead away from everything she once knew. The trial continues with more witness statements, neighbors who heard bits of the fight, the paramedics who arrived at the scene, each piece forming a puzzle of anger and betrayal. Marcus's lawyer tries to establish that Elijah was frequently contacting Nina, undermining Marcus's mental state. Elijah's lawyer portrays Elijah as a man seeking paternal rights, ambushed by his enraged brother. The judge watches impassively, taking notes, flicking glances at Nina, who sits with her mother and Dahlia in the gallery, a silent tear often marking her cheek. Finally, after grueling days of testimony, the closing arguments come. The prosecution demands accountability for Marcus's violence, emphasizing how much damage was inflicted on Elijah. The defense implores the jury to empathize with a man shattered by betrayal who acted out of emotional turmoil. Marcus watches, expression stone cold, the circles under his eyes evidence of countless sleepless nights. Elijah sits across the aisle, quietly pressing a bandage near his temple. Nina trembles with anxiety, her mother rubbing her back to soothe her. Outside, the media circus continues, each outlet framing the story with dramatic flair. "Brotherly betrayal nears verdict," reads one headline. "Family torn asunder by illicit affair," proclaims another. When the verdict is finally read, the tension is so thick it feels impossible to breathe. The jury finds Marcus guilty of misdemeanor assault, acknowledging extenuating circumstances. He avoids a felony charge but faces possible jail time or probation. The sentence will be determined at a later hearing. Marcus buries his face in his hands, a mixture of relief that he won't face a felony and devastation that he's still being convicted of a crime. Elijah exhales, shoulders sagging. Nina feels her heart hammering, eyes darting to Dahlia, who clings to her grandmother's hand. Outside the courthouse, Marcus shakes off the press, ignoring the hail of questions. Elijah and Ms. Chantry also depart quickly. Nina finds herself in a swirl of confusion, the future of her family, if it can even be called a family anymore, dangling by a thread. That evening, alone in her living room, she tries to piece together the final shards of hope. She suspects that the custody battle has only just begun, that the fight over Dahlia will be the next stage. She paces the floor, ignoring the phone that rings incessantly with reporters seeking her statement. She's not sure how much more heartbreak she can endure, how many more nights of tears, how many more mornings of dread. But Dahlia's face flashes in her mind, that sweet innocence that deserves better than the chaos swirling around her. Nina presses her hands to her eyes, stifling sobs, wishing for a miracle that might save them from the final fallout that surely waits around the corner. The next day, the official sentencing hearing for Marcus arrives. He stands before the judge, shoulders tense, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. The judge declares that based on the circumstances and the lack of prior violent offenses, Marcus will receive probation and mandatory anger management counseling. There's a collective sigh of relief in the courtroom, no jail time. But a stern lecture follows. "Mr. Green, what you did was unacceptable. Betrayal doesn't justify violence. I expect to see you comply fully with all conditions." Marcus nods, subdued. Outside, Elijah intercepts him near the courthouse steps. Cameras swirl, but Miss Chantry wards them off, trying to give the brothers a moment. Marcus tenses, ready for another confrontation. Elijah, voice low, says, "I'm not here to fight. I just want you to know I'm sorry it came to this. But I won't back down about Dahlia." Marcus's eyes blaze. "Then we have nothing left to say," he mutters, turning away. The cameras catch every frame. Weeks turn into months. The custody hearings drag on, each session layering fresh anguish upon the family. The Guardian ad litem's report emphasizes that Dahlia has a strong bond with Marcus, but also a right to know her biological father, recommending a shared arrangement. Marcus resists, Elijah persists, Nina stands on a tightrope of regret. Gossip abates somewhat, replaced by new local scandals, but the fundamental rift remains. Dahlia becomes quieter at school, struggling to understand why her dad is never home, why her uncle visits her in supervised sessions, why her mother cries behind closed doors. One evening, Nina catches Dahlia kneeling by her bed, praying in a small, sweet voice. "Dear God, please make Daddy come back so we can all be happy." Nina's eyes well with tears. She hates herself for not being able to give her child that happiness. She kneels beside Dahlia, gently stroking her hair. "Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are hard to fix," she whispers. Dahlia gazes at her, eyes filled with longing. "But you'll still love me, right, Mommy?" Nina kisses her forehead. "Always, baby. Always." The final custody hearing dawns on a rainy morning, the sky weeping as though reflecting the sorrow about to be laid bare. Nina sits between her lawyer and her mother, hands twisting in her lap. Elijah sits with Miss Chantry, wearing a grim expression. Marcus, alongside his attorney, radiates tension. The judge listens to last-minute pleas. Elijah insists, "I don't want to uproot her life. I just want the chance to be her father. I will do anything the court requires to prove I'm fit." Marcus's voice trembles with rage-laced sorrow. "I am her father, whether or not blood says so. I've cared for her since the day she was born. Please don't take that from me." Nina remains silent, tears slipping steadily. She looks at Dahlia, seated quietly with the Guardian ad litem clutching the stuffed giraffe like a talisman. When the judge speaks, everyone holds their breath. She outlines that Dahlia's best interests involve maintaining her primary residence with Nina. As the mother, she acknowledges that Marcus has functioned as Dahlia's father and will retain joint custody with significant visitation rights. However, Elijah, as the biological father, is granted shared legal custody, meaning he has a say in major decisions. He is also granted scheduled visitation. A hush falls. Marcus stiffens, jaw set. Elijah closes his eyes in relief. Nina exhales, tears of conflicting emotions. The judge warns them all, "You must find a way to co-parent responsibly. Further conflict will only harm the child." In the weeks that follow, a fragile routine emerges. Dahlia stays with Nina primarily. Some days she visits Marcus, who tries to maintain an air of normalcy. Elijah schedules visits through the appointed supervisor, slowly building a tenuous relationship with the child, who still calls him Uncle Elijah most of the time. Nina stands at the edge of this arrangement, grateful that Dahlia at least seems calmer, though the girl still asks tough questions no one can fully answer. Rumors eventually fade from public consciousness as new scandals arise. The cameras stop camping outside. The neighborhood finds new gossip. Nina takes each day as it comes, swallowed by guilt, living in a realm of uncertain reconciliation. She wonders if her marriage to Marcus is salvageable, if her connection to Elijah can ever be more than a regretful scar. She tries therapy, tries to piece together her psyche. Marcus refuses to attend, burying himself in anger management classes mandated by the court, still harboring a quiet resentment that might never fully disappear. One evening, Nina stands on the porch, watching Dahlia and Elijah in the front yard. They're drawing chalk lines on the pavement, giggling softly. Marcus's car pulls up. For a moment, they all lock eyes. The wife, the husband, the brother, the daughter. No harsh words are spoken. Dahlia runs to Marcus, throwing her arms around him, squealing, "Daddy!" Elijah stands back, eyes somber. Nina's heart aches at the complicated scene. She knows this fractured family might never be whole in the way it once was. but they are bound by blood, by love, and by the consequences of one fateful affair. As dusk falls, Nina feels a surge of determination. She will not run from her choices anymore. She steps forward, quietly inviting Marcus inside, inviting Elijah to join. Dahlia looks on, eyes bright with naive hope that maybe, just maybe, they can share a space without fighting. In a hushed voice, Nina speaks to them both. We have to do better for her sake. We have to try. Marcus glances at Elijah, the animosity still there but dulled by time and necessity. Elijah nods, voice tense but sincere. For Dahlia, they step into the house, leaving the chalk-drawn outlines behind. It's not a perfect resolution, and the scars of betrayal will remain, but in that moment, a fragile peace settles over them, a warning that choices have consequences, that love can be tainted by secrets, but also that the future might hold a chance, however slim, for redemption.